my God.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Now for business updates across the globe, Rochus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rochus.
Doctor, welcome back. Good to see you. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Rufai, nice suit. I like your color of your suit, sir. I like that.
Nice suit.
So,
for doctors.
I know, right? We'll be talking about Prada and some fashion in a moment. But before we get to Prada, let's start with Asian stocks, which are mixed in the morning. Look, more weak data coming from China. Manufacturing PMI was weak. I think services PMI was above 50. But Asian stocks are mixed this morning because China just continues to be in a problematic sector. You know, Xi Jinping, we hear according to Reuters that he's going to skip the G20 summit. Some sources, diplomats in India, diplomats in China apparently spoke to them. He's not going to go. He's going to send Premier Li Kang to replace him. Putin has already said he's not going, maybe because of fear of arrest. He is sending Sergei Lavrov to replace him. Because there's a warrant for his arrest now.
Maybe he's strong, but it's good.
Yeah, that's what's happening. I think we'll go to Europe next. As far as the UBS, they just released second quarter earnings. Remember, they took over Credit Suisse back in, was it July or so? Pre-tax profit of 29 billion, but I think some accounting metrics, there's an accounting gain from the takeover. They're seeking $10 billion in cost savings, maybe letting more people go. Credit Suisse, though, their pre-tax loss, because, I mean, even though they are merged, they still reported their own earnings within that UBS report. 10 billion loss there. Their net asset outflows, that's people who were removing their money when the merger happened, 44 billion in the second quarter. But UBS says they're going to retain Credit Suisse domestic business. So we'll get more updates as matters unfold there. Apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, Tesla is being investigated for a corporate governance matter, something called Project 42. You know, Elon Musk, he moved to Austin, Texas. He's talked about how California is overtaxing businesses. So apparently they're building some glass structure, a glass house. And apparently the board investigated this back in July, but nothing came of it. So the Southern Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York, also the SEC, apparently investigating whether money was, diverted in order to build this glass structure. It may not come out to anything, but that's what the Wall Street Journal is saying that they're investigating currently. And then U.S. Private sector jobs from ADP, automatic data processing, cooled to 177 jobs. We've already, continue to talk about how we want to see data on job growth. Rufai, bangs on about this, a lot of times. So August forecast 195, 371,000 in July. We will see the actual non-farm payrolls tomorrow. So we'll see, I guess, it'll be Monday when we talk about that. And then, are we getting to Prada now? There we go. $650 underwear. They say it's meant to be worn without pants. So if you convert $650 at 920, because I'm going to get to the dollar and the Naira dollar, that's about 598,000. So capitalism and the ability to be able to make fashion for the ultra rich. Anyone who's watching because I hear our YouTube comments are very lively. If you would wear $650 underwear, would you show it off? How would you do it? It's just
sagging.
Yeah. But then so how would you know? It's amazing. So again, when people talk about, I'm a capitalist, so you can sell what you want. But this is one of the things when people talk about the widening gap between the rich and the poor and income inequality. It's quite amazing. All right, so let's get to the Naira now. It has fallen back to 920 to the dollar on the parallel market. Remember, after Mr. Shonubi, acting governor of the central bank, came out and said that speculators will lose your shares, be careful, stop speculating, something is coming in the pipeline. The Naira did appreciate to about 850. Although it's funny enough, it appreciated to 738 on the I&E window. But then how many can access FX at that? Now, look, we're yet to hear from the Afri-Exim Bank on this $3 billion loan to Nigeria facilitated through the NNPC. $3 billion is a lot of money, right? The fact that we haven't had a press release or an announcement from them is, pretty concerning. But according to articles in today's Business Day and also Money Central, they're saying that there are some worries about whether or not Nigeria can actually facilitate this loan. So you have the Naira falling back. Look, frankly, at this point, it seems like the country may just be forced to float the currency because if you, I was quoting the Bible. But look, the thing is, if the money is not there, the money is not there. This loan was, according to the NNPC, confirmed back on August the 16th. People, after Shonubi made the announcement, said that there was going to be a big move. The Naira appreciated. But now there's been no confirmation, and now you've got publications. When there's, look, this is why we ask for transparency and say, just talk to people and tell us what's going on. If you got the money, then tell us you got the money and let's know what's up. If you didn't get it, tell us you didn't get it. Let's just know what's up. There's no need for any, So anyway, that's why the Naira has fallen, because again, speculators will think that the CBN cannot defend the currency, and it is what it is. So if you can't defend it, let it go, and then just deal with the consequences going forward until you can secure FX inflows into the country. You're talking a lot about democracy. In fact, I want to pose this question to the three of you about democracy in Africa, and whether or not, I don't know, people seem to call it a Western construct. This is, of course, on the back of Gabon and what's been going on. It baffles me why people say that democracy is a complicated thing for African nations, because what is it? It's simply freedom of choice, right? The choice to pick your leaders and change them when you want to. And when you have a Kagame that has been ruling Rwanda for however long, I don't care how well the economy is doing, when you have Paul Biya, as Doctor mentioned, and all these other people that have been in office for so long, democracy suffers. People in other countries are allowed to pick and choose their leaders, and they are thriving. So this whole foreign construct, Western construct, it's a very simple, straightforward thing. You chose to wear this suit this morning. You chose to eat whatever breakfast you had this morning. People are choosing to watch Arise TV. Would you like it if somebody told you, no, you cannot watch Arise TV this morning, or you can't buy that phone, or can't wear that dress? Or it's just freedom of choice. So, but yeah, so Gabon, the African Union President Tinubu he has so many issues right now. He has domestic issues in Nigeria. He's got Niger, then this Gabon thing now. I frankly think the president should just allow other institutions. I know Nigeria has to show leadership, but with what the issues we have right now, we're stretched. So that's our update for today.
So a couple of things, at least. It is pure and simple, and that's why we should condemn strong men. Because what strong men do is they destroy strong institutions that will give you the capacity of choice, like you talked about, Rotus. And when they destroy those strong institutions, they want it to be about them. They want to take your choice away. So condemn them. Men that manipulate electoral process, men that do all sorts to get themselves, like Ali Bongo did in Gabon. Condemn them totally. Like Thomas Sankara says, Abba with them, down with them. We can't continue with men like that.
Men.
Yes.
Men.
Yes.
Men.
Men.
So always the problem.
In general terms. Secondly, you see, these are part of the things we are saying. And this is where we differ, Rotus.
Yeah.
I understand your point. We don't have the money. Float. But another part of me is saying, if you float, Yawa go day. There's going to be big disruption. If you allow this Naira float to up to over 1,000 or thereabouts, there's a knock-on effect. As it is 920 already, Yawa don't day. Yawa has gas, if I can use that word in English parlance.
For international
viewers. What it means is things are down as we speak. It's like a case of no return. And that's why, where I align with you, is that's why we should be transparent. Shebi, our very good friend, what's his name? You know who I'm talking about, Rotus. Tweeted the breakdown for how the money was going to come.
The Afro-Exim loan.
The Afro-Exim loan.
Yeah.
What happened to the Afro-Exim loan? Why is it that it is a newspaper that's not telling us what's going on? They should come out and talk to us. The CBN, Mr. Shonu B, should come out and talk to us Nigerians what's happening as regards that money. Because at least if we get that money, we used to buffer. What is happening to that money as we speak? If they are saying now that they are not sure if we are going to pay it back, then it's a problem. We can't afford to make our country go. So because where we also differ is the fact that of the pass-through effects of a currency surge, like if it goes to over 1,000, right, the pass-through effect on our daily lives. Inflation. The fact that a banana seller will tell you that dollar has gone up. So banana price has gone up. Despite the fact he planted the banana in his backyard, he's growing freely. There's no dollar inclination to what he does to the banana. But he will tell you that. And that's why we should please be circumspect. Please, I beg, come out and give us the facts of what's happening.
All right, let me come to the last question you asked, and let me just say a little joke there with regards to the men leading. If you look at the women who've led, from Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, Joyce Banda, and even if we look across the world, we know when to step down.
Abolish male leadership.
Jacinda Ardern, Nicola Sturgeon. So maybe it's time to allow, let me not use the word, maybe it's time for more women to step up in terms of leadership, because we know when to exit.
Finish.
So maybe, so just go back to the point. But I mean, there's no scientific, there's no empirical evidence to that. But let me just talk about, with regards to also in terms of freedom of choice. What you said is very key, but the truth is that you've said the key word. Do we have freedom of choice? Absolutely not. So democracy is meant to be freedom of choice, but what we have is an imposition under the guise of an election, and that's where we have our issues. Right. It's the fact that the people feel like their choices have been taken away from them forcefully is why they revolt. So yes, on the face of it, it seems as if there's, we have democratically elected people, leaders, but the reality of it is that we don't actually have that. So we need to deal, again, I'll go back to what I said in terms of the institutions and the kind of people that we elect into office. Then in terms of the economic impact of coups on the continent of Africa. So I talked about the Zimbabwean situation. The problem with having a military administration with no plans as to when to exit or even a forceful takeover is that usually there's no accountability in terms of resource control. We've seen massive corruption where military takeover, and thank you so much for showing that. We look at the economy of Gabon at the moment. Let's see how it look like in 1 year time.
One of the most corrupt nations on this planet, Gabon.
But there's such a wealth gap, a wealth deficit in terms of the rich and the poor. And this is where, again, the challenges have come. So in terms of management of resources, very poor, usually under military administration, lack of accountability. If we thought institutions were weakened during a democratic system of government, usually in the military system of government, it's almost usually worse. So,
and Ali Bongo probably wears $650 Prada underwear.
Yeah,
he probably does.
Okay.
All right, Doctor.
Yeah, the question you raised about democracy.
Yes.
Well, out of the 54 countries in Africa, about 45 have had at least either a full coup or a coup attempt since 1950. What you have in Gabon is a second coup in that country since its independence in 1960. And the Odimba family, has been in power for 45 years. Now, the issue is that reckless politicians cause these problems. It's part of it. The attempt not to allow democracy to work is part of the problem. And what you have seen also in recent times is the failure of the French foreign policy in Africa. That's another subject entirely. But to address your question about democracy directly, I remember the 2003 book by Farid Zakaria. Farid Zakaria is with CNN, and an author. He published a book called The Future of Freedom, A Liberal Democracies at Home and Abroad, which became a bestseller. What is his major argument? He was trying to contrast liberal democracy with illiberal democracy. And his simple argument about liberal democracy is that, look, where you allow the basic freedoms and your institutions are strong, then, of course, you can have, democracy on a sustainable basis. Citing the example, his key example was the example of South Korea. Okay, now, he now focused on illiberal democracies. And he says, you will find illiberal democracies in those countries where, yes, you have elections, but the main system in those countries is authoritarianism, which is what we see in many of these African countries. And that authoritarianism is made possible because you don't have institutions, because you don't have checks and balances. So if a man takes over power and is in the position, his family is in position for 55 years, he will do as he wishes. If a man is in power, as is the case in Cameroon for 43 years, he will be tempted to do as he wishes. In Guinea Equatorial Guinea, the president there and his children, they run everything. His children are in charge of the military. One of them is in charge of the oil corporation of the state. So that's the kind of absurdity that you find in Africa. And that's why you find that one after the other, you find people rebelling against it. The major question for Africa will be for us to begin to look at this democracy, to respect the principle, the tenets. The age of strong men ended I guess, by the 1990s, when democracy became the popular trend.
Yeah.
Part of the sub-argument in Farid Zakaria's book is that, maybe there are cultural dimensions to it, but the kind of cultural dimension that we seem to have added to democracy, is a deviation completely from international standards, a violation of human rights, because human rights is at the center of the democratic proposition. In addition to mass popular participation and the freedom to choose, to elect your own leaders. So these are the things that the African Union should also, and ECOWAS and all the regional bodies should begin to talk about. France's French foreign policy changing in Africa. If it had been in the past, France would have intervened immediately.
Right.
After all, in Gabon, France has about 400 soldiers who are permanently stationed there under the cover of providing training for military operation on a regional basis. But France cannot intervene, simply because the policy is different. It will need the endorsement of the regional body or perhaps of the African Union. Yeah. Now, to talk about the G20 summit beginning September 19. Well, China has not given any reasons why President Xi Jinping will not be there. But you recall that the expectation was that President Xi Jinping will meet President Biden, on the sidelines of that summit. But the premier is going, but it's not at the same level. So, but I don't think we can read any meanings into it. Where Russia is not going, Putin is not going, he's sending Sergei Lavrov. But when the G20 met in Bali, Indonesia, last November, it provided an opportunity for Xi Jinping and President Biden to meet. But there may be no such opportunity now. Maybe perhaps as a result of controversy over the draft resolutions of that G20 summit, which frowns upon the role of Russia in Ukraine. That may be part of the explanation. In China, the economy appears to be struggling.
Indeed, yes.
You alluded to that. All the measures, the stimulus, you call it stimulus, in the property sector to jumpstart consumer demand and all that, do not seem to be working. So China still finds itself trapped in the midst of deflation, or what you economists call disinflation.
Indeed.
But the more interesting point will be the data coming from the United States about job growth, about economic growth. Job growth has slowed down. The calculation was about 200,000. What you have on the table is 177,000. And, the expectation is that by tomorrow, when we have other data about inflation, investors are hoping that maybe that will force the Federal Reserve, to pause further rate hikes. Well, that may happen, it may not happen. But the bigger fear, IMF is appealing to India to stop banning exports. They've banned the export of non-basmati rice.
Doctors talk about rice.
They've banned the export of other items, and including sugar. Right? And India is the agro basket, second largest agro basket of the world. It imports about 40% of rice, about half of sugar and other items. So the fear is that if other countries begin to imitate India, prices will go up, and food inflation crisis will continue to go up. 45 countries out of the 54 countries in Africa depend on Africa and Asia, depend on major food imports from India.
Which is dollar.
But should India not worry about its own people first? Because the whole plan is to moderate domestic prices of these items. Maybe there is a lesson for our leaders there who pay lip service to agriculture but cannot feed their own people.